Hello again. This is the Waterman Spiritual Toolbox number 50, the Love Chapter number 26, audio recording number 368, examination table number 30. And I'll be continuing in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 4. I'll start off by reading it. Charity suffereth long, and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself, is not puffed up. Now that's just King James Version. I left off in the word that they translate as in kind, is kind. Okay, and that word is, we'll trace down to where it was at, and I'll take there's a little bit more to do on that in that word, okay? Okay, it's from this word.
Strong's G 5541. Christomai. Christomai.
Okay, that's the word that they translate as is kind. Okay. And from the root, from the etymology of this, it's coming down as number 5543. That was a verb. This is the adjective. It's
Strong's G 5543. Christos. Christos.
Okay. And then we go on down, tracing it down to the root. I've already covered those words on the last recording. Down to 5530. Oops. Okay, yeah, 5530, sorry. Thought I pushed another one. And this is also a verb, but it's on down in the root.
Strong's G 5530. Chraamai. Chraamai.
Okay, and these words start with, this one started spelled Chraomai. That's a transliteration. Okay, that's a verb. And that's the middle voice of a primary verb, perhaps rather from 5495 to handle. It's this word. This word.
Strong's G 5495. Chayer. Chayer.
Okay. Now this word, the root is perhaps from the base of 5494. Which I hadn't got to yet, in the sense of it's C-O-N-G-E-N-E-R, the base of 5490 through the eye of the hollowness of grasping. Remember, I done talked about grasping. You're grasping onto God's powerful hand, His love beyond words. You're borrowing, okay? Borrowing Him, pulling you through all the way into, from I love, to, towards, into, and in, resting in Him, and in union with Him, all the way back. You know, inside His thinking, inside His righteousness, His right mindedness, where He's wielding you and He's holding you, and you're safe and secure. You return home through the eye of the needle, if you will. Okay? No baggage thinking, no carnality, no impurities can make it through that, because there's too much fiery trials and the storms of life, the fiery tests, fiery trials, the pressures and stuff that basically like burn that out. Consuming fire and refining fire that burns that all the impurities out. So the only thing that can make it in your thinking processes, all the way back from that plank-sized thinking process, and it's growing. As you agree, God's chopping out that old stuff, that old darkness thinking inside that tiny little thought process. God's cutting it out and giving an increase from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8, 16 on up. Okay, and it's growing bigger as it's, or more dense, more weighty, more glorious doxa in his nature, character, and authority. So it's getting heavier and heavier and heavier, denser, more glorious thought process in his right-mindedness as it's approaching, as it's getting closer to being in rest, in God. And that's why you in union with God, where he's like permanently welding you with all this heat, pressures, and everything. It's a pearl of great price. Remember, this is like a ball, just like a raindrop. Raindrop, they draw it real stupid, like this big oval thing. It's not really like that. When it drops from the clouds in the skies and it drops all the way down to the ground, well, it's just like the earth and the other planets and the sun and the moon, everything. It forms a perfect sphere by the time it's hitting to the bottom. You know, the wind might blow it a little bit, knock out, because it's not solid yet. It's liquid form. It's a ball. Everything's pulling towards the center. Gravitationally, it's pulling towards the center of that eye drop. All the mass of that little water raindrop is pulling to the center of that, just like your thinking process is pulling to the center of this plank-sized seed, that faith. And it's growing. It's God's cutting this darkness out and transforming it through that fire, consuming fire, and through that refining fire back into his pure water. Purified water. It's his purified thought process, is the way God thinks. He's transforming your old carnal, stinking, poop thinking back into purified water. Purified right-mindedness of God. Okay? See, this natural stuff is teaching you about the spiritual stuff. Okay? God's in control. He puts it all out there. His ways are far above our ways. Okay? So this is pressing together, just like the earth. Overall, I know there's big mountain ranges all the way down to the deepest depths of the ocean and stuff. But if you're away from the earth, get away pretty far and look at it, it's just a ball. Because that's just a little bitty light top on outside of that. It's all looking like a ball. The moon, it's got craters and stuff in it, but when you look at it up in the sky when it's a full moon, it's a ball. It's a sphere. S-P-H-E-R-E. The same thing with the sun. Boom. It's forming a sphere. God's forming a sphere. He's cutting out all those little impurities. And as you agree, don't stop believing. Don't stop pressing into God as you're going through this pressure test. This purification, that fire, this pressure is making pearls of great price inside you, inside your thinking process, inside each and every person. But you have to choose correctly and exist. Keep going. Okay? Don't give up just because things seem bitter and sour to you. In that vinegar solution, when God's changing that cucumber thinking process back into a pickle thought process, this vinegar solution is bitter and sour and hard to swallow. Just like the stuff in life. It's hard to swallow. But if you can endure it, persevere through this eye of the needle, God will make those into pearls of great price. What is it? What's Jesus? I-E-S-O-U-S? Jesus. Yahweh. Not Jehovah. There's no delay or Jehovah. It's take out those vowels. It's Y-H-W-H. They really didn't know how to pronounce that. I'm just saying Yahweh for the be able to remember it, and that's okay. It's Y-H-W-H. Yahweh is salvation or deliverance. He's the one bringing you through this. It's his strong power that you hold on to. He's doing it all. You just agree. Yes, sir, Daddy. And in doing that, you're coming up higher in the spirit, coming from that fleshly realm up into and all the way in, from out of and all this stuff, to, towards, into, and en, and then syn. The en and syn is just boom right in there. Kind of like the protons and neutrons are in the nucleus of an atom. And they're held tight in the natural by strong nuclear force. Well, God's strong force is way on beyond that strong nuclear force. That strong nuclear force is pretty, it's pretty strong. When they split an atom, we'll have boom, nuclear criticality is going on, right? Boom, boom, chain reaction. You can be a lot of destruction in the natural, radiation, all this stuff, contamination from the stuff, getting contaminated from the radioactive. Okay, now I'm not going into all that crap. Okay, that's just all, it's everything showing you God. This other thing is that they're looking at this hair and saying, "Hey, I don't believe in God." It's because they're looking with their natural, they're thinking with their natural thinking. You can't go on beyond that. God blows that thing up to the size of the whole observable universe and looks all the way down, even beyond the size of a hair inside that hair. Okay? Where things breaking down, laws of physics are breaking down. But God knows it on beyond that. Because it's the seed which God placed there, and that's Him. And like in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 13, God cannot deny Himself. Aren't you glad? He's giving you a way out, right? Now, so this 5490, in this word 5494, CHEIR, is broken down as it's from this 5494 and 5490 that through the idea of the hollowness of the hand, grasping it, you're grasping, borrowing God's love beyond words, God's power, God's might, God's efforts. And you're just agree, hang on with all your might. See, love the Lord with all your might and all your everything you got. What's that, the greatest commandment? The first, okay? It's to love God, everything you got, basically. And the second is likened to it. It's the same thing, really. Love your neighbor, love that Christ in others. The seeds growing up to the greatness of God. It's even forest. See, even like little worlds in there. That whole thing's been cut out and is brought back into the fullness of life, that Zoe of life in God, that fullness of life in God. Bringing it back in, so it's pearls of great price, back en and syn in God. All the way down there to the smallest, all the way up to the largest in you, and then it's reflecting out through the grace. God's influence in you is reflecting out into your lifestyle. And it's much gratitude and recognizing that God is the superhero. He's the great one. He's your salvation. He's your deliverance. It's not by your might nor by your power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. That's Zechariah 4:6. Okay. Now, so that covering 5490. Now, let's see, make sure that's 5490 is this word.
Strong's G 5490. Chasma.
Yeah, see, actually 5490 is that gulf or that chasm. He's pulling you out of that great big gulf and chasm. You holding on to his hand. Because you can't get out of that big old chasm, big old gulf, big old gaping opening. A poop thinking in your mind without him pulling out, without without his efforts, without God's efforts, okay? This other thing is like in the last chapter, last verse, in Judges, where when there's no king in the land, when God's not ruling in their land, in your mind, not this stuff out here, in your mind. Okay, there's two in the field, in your mind. One will be taken out, that old nasty yuck poop thinking's being cut out and transformed back into the right-mindedness of God. When there's no king in that land to do whatever, all kinds of yuck. Okay? Check that one out. Read it, study it, okay? I'm just giving you a little bit of pointing at it. Okay? I'm not trying to quote it or nothing like that. I could go there and look right now. I've done it before. Okay? Now, so this chasm is at 5490. Okay, let's back up just a little bit, because there's another word right here. It's perhaps from the base of 5494. Okay, 5494. This is all under is kind. God's doing all this stuff. He's giving you away. He's not burning you up in a hell. If he was, he'd just leave you there. They had no even chance. Don't even bother with agreeing with me. I'm not going to touch you. I'm going to shove you down further. That's not what it says. That's not the meaning. That's not the intent. That's that old carnal mind, that ego, because it's having to give up and surrender. These pressures, these fiery trials, and these storms of life, these pressures and these fiery trials are making it die. It's being cut out. Hiya, if you agree with God in hot pursuit, it's getting its butt cut out of you. It's trying to survive. Don't stay there. Yuck. Shut up, you old dog. Boom, bam, slap, sock in it and all that stuff. Be still. Cut that stuff out. Yes, sir, Daddy. Hi-ya. It's trying to cut this stuff out. Little by little by little by little by little by little, in the tiniest thing. And it grows. It makes room for it to transform and grow into the right-mindedness of God. See, it's not necessarily getting bigger. It's getting weightier, denser, more doxa, more glorious in God's great character, in his right-mindedness, in his love beyond words. He's bringing you back home. Okay? Now, this, about lost train of thought for a minute. Perhaps this CHEIR, this 5494, comes down and sounds like these two words. 5494 and 5490. That's that chasm that God's bringing out through the idea of grasping the hollow with a hand. That's hollow with God's hand. Locking hands. Your efforts are meeting and holding on the best you can with God's powerful hand, his efforts. The only weak link there is you. Don't just hold on as hard as you can. God won't put more on you, more of this fire trials and more of this pressure than you are capable of holding on. But he's just going to press you. So you got to let go of that stinking thinking so that it purifies you. This fire, this purification. God's purification is consuming fire, and God is a refining fire. That it does the refining and the consuming that's necessary to get this out. You agree. Okay? And he's pulling you out through this great chasm, this great gulf, this great big oil slick in your mind of poop thinking. He's pulling you out because you can't do none of it. This stuff is greater and mightier than you. It's oh man. Okay? God's rescuing you. He's saving you. He's delivering you from this stuff. Yahweh is salvation. He's pulling you out, okay? Now, that covers 5490, okay? That chasm and grasping of the hollowness of his thigh, of the hand, of his hand, the hollowness and grasping, okay, of his hand. You know, he's bam, he's pulling it out. Now, this base is also 5494. Check this one out. It's the word
Strong's G 5494. Chaimon.
It's spelled Cheimon. It's a masculine noun. It's from the derivative of cheo, to pour, like you're pouring water, okay? Remember, the water is the word, spiritual word of God. It's the very thought processes of God, okay? Akin to the base 5490 through the idea of a channel, like that eye of the needle. It's right down pouring that water. See, it's in you. He's like pouring it. He's cutting out that dust thinking, that yuck, that poop thinking inside this little bitty ball. Okay? And causing that seed to grow. He's pouring in his thought processes. Woo! See, now he's doing this. Look at this, how he's doing this. In this, it says a winter. That 5494 is like a winter, stormy, rainy weather, a tempest, winter, the winter season. Winter is what? A time of death. And the natural stuff gets cold, and there may be all kinds of storms, winter storms, snow, ice, okay? Plants usually die, okay? Okay. Okay. It's right down here. It's meaning in the Strong's, a storm as pouring rain on it. See, it's cutting out this stuff. See, it's 1 to 2 to 4 to 8, 16, double. It's chopping, hiya, as you agree, and God keep on believing. God's cutting out that stuff and transforming it with his consuming fire and his refining fire into, back from out of that stinking thinking, into, you know, all this stuff, towards into, and all this, resting in God. See, he's pouring his thought processes in there. Washing it out. He's flooding that stuff, getting rid of it, as you agree with him. Don't turn around like Lot's wife and go back to that old burnt and this ruin, ashes, bullcrap stuff. Keep on going so that those pearls come through there. That little ball in your thinking process, the tiniest ball. And that's got all this seed down in it. That's like a plant-sized seed, and it's being cut out and transformed, and it's growing into this tiny ball, being purified into a pure raindrop of God. Pure thought process of God. This like pearl of great price. Pearls are made right? Irritation and pressures, fire trials, all this. It's along the same lines. God's purifying your mind in here. Okay? This natural stuff just doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things. How long is your life? If you live to be 120, 150 years old, I don't know anybody that's 150 years old today. Okay? And I don't know one that's 120 years old. Okay? Few make it to 100. Okay? But that's a mere blip in the grand scheme of things. Because this spirit that's purified when it goes back to the Father, back in the Father, when you die on this earth. He's just proving ground. He's taking you through his eye of the needle, transforming these thought processes right back into his right-mindedness. He's bringing you and putting you in his body, in his right-mindedness, where he sees fit. Okay? This is all under kind, is kind. is that's very shallow, very superficial. But when you look at it, oh my, it's really blowing up, right? Now, so he's pouring it in. And he's pouring it through these rainstorms. So if you look at it, oh, it's to me, it's to me, it's to me, it's killing me, it's going to sink my ship. And the Christ inside you, you're going, oh, I can't do it. You see, you got to hold on to that hollowness of the hand. Let God pull you through that great gulf, that great chasm, that yuck, stinking, poopy thinking that's just rah, rah. Gotta listen to that still small voice. Like, duct tape it, man. Sock in his mouth, duct tape, make a muzzle. Shut that old dog thinking up. Keep on doing it. It's chopping it out. Not by your might, your power, but by my spirit, says the Lord. And he's bringing you into this, okay? Okay? Now, just a second. Okay, tempest, stormy, rainy weather. This is all under that 5494, okay? And, just a second. Yeah. Okay, 5490 through the idea of a storm. That's just the root word, the root etymology from that. Through the idea of a channel, meaning a storm, and it's going down to that's 5490. It's that chasma.
Strong's G 5490. Chasma.
And that's that
Chasma.
From an obsolete prime CHAO instigate to yon. That's that gulf I was talking about. That chasm, okay? See, it kind of all tying in there. He's showing you a picture. Okay? Now that chased it down to the root. Pretty well, okay? I tried to open it up and show you there. Okay, now, I got just a few minutes left, so I'm going to come out here and I'm going to jump over. Whenever you're bringing this message, or this message comes to you, you know you're not that you are the temple of the Lord, temple of the living God, okay? So that's a house. It's a habitation place. And as you're coming through and these things are being brought back into the right, back all the way in and SYN, that's your habitation, and it's growing, it's building, it's becoming more dense, more glorious in God. Now in this that I'm going to start to read you, but then you'll probably have to go in and read it yourself. I'm probably only going to read a little bit of it because I only got a little bit, and I don't want to just blaze through it too fast. I mean, it's not going to cover it nowhere near what you need to. But if you go back in Matthew chapter 10, and start in verse 5, where Jesus is sending out the 12 disciples to do all this stuff, okay? Go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into the city of the Samaritans enter ye. See, the 12, just read the first 5. I'll read a little bit of it. But there's a certain verse that I wanted to hit real for sure. I don't know if I get to it or not. These 12 Jesus sent. Let's just read out of King James, because New King James is a little bit easier to read than all that thee, thou stuff, okay? Okay? So let's read verse 5. And you have to read on through the rest of the chapter. Wow. And look, because I can't do that in this little bit of time, okay? These 12 Jesus sent out and commanded them, saying, do not go into the way of the Gentiles, and do not enter into the house, to the city of the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Verse 7. And as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of God is at hand. It's when at hand, now, right now. currently, whenever you're dealing with it in these storms of life. It's bringing through each and every area of your thinking process right now. Kingdom, it's growing inside you. It's growing in density, as you agree, right? Okay. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons. Freely you have received, freely give. Provide neither gold, nor silver, nor copper in your money belts, nor bag for your journey, nor 2 tunics, nor sandals, nor staffs, for a worker is worthy of his food. Now whatever city or town you enter, inquire who is worthy, and stay there till you go out. And when you go into a household, greet it. If the household is worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it is not worthy, let it leave. Right here, verse 14. And whoever will not receive you nor hear you, when you depart from the house, shake off the dust of your feet, of your lifestyle. If they don't receive that message, turn them over to it. Just go on. But don't take it for yourself. And that's inside this whatever. Don't take in that bullshit thinking. They want it, let them be stuck, but don't you be stuck. Go on. Okay, this was a Spiritual Toolbox number 50. I gotta sign off. Bye-bye.